All right, it's working. Good evening. How many do I know? How many have I met before? All right. Topic tonight is the secret of self-contemplation, meditation. I want to cover the subject. I want to leave some time for questions, your questions and my answers. And as I talk and later on during the question period, I may say some things that cause you to think. I don't try to be radical or hard to get along with, but I try to get to the point, practical sense. I think we can strip this thing down to its bare essentials, down to the workable techniques, and down to a system that will bring us results. I believe anyone can get results in meditation. Sometimes a person will say, I'm not the contemplative type. I'm the devotional type, or I'm the karma yoga, and I'm the type, I get along better if I just work my way to heaven by performing selfless action. We need individuals who will take hold sometimes and take the initiative and work selflessly. And we need individuals who have this love consciousness, this consciousness of feeling oneness with life. But we also need, I believe, the experience in the silence. When we let the body relax, the thoughts settle down, that we might come to that point in realization where we see the unconditioned, the absolute, that which is termed the superconscious, the I am, the reality, that which is. And everyone can do it. Everyone can do it regardless of age. Now, I sort of go along with most of you that some are naturals in this work. Some have a natural talent in this direction. Some can meditate more easily than others. But I do believe that anyone who understands the basic principles, who is willing to give time to meditation, who is serious about it, who is honest with himself, can get results that will be very worthwhile. What is meditation? Meditation means to focus the attention upon the absolute, or in the beginning, your concept of the absolute. Eventually, we want to get beyond the concept level, but you have to start somewhere. Meditation is concentration, then, on God or the absolute reality. What is concentration? Concentration is the flowing of attention to one point. That's all it is. When your attention is flowing to one point without distraction, that is concentration. Now, sometimes you say that you can't even sit down and slow the mind down. You can't sit down and relax. If you give yourself time, you can do it. Also, if you get the proper inspiration and motivation, it will help you to identify with the object of meditation. You begin whatever life pattern you choose to move in. You may not know all the ropes in the beginning. You may not know how to go about doing the things you want to do in life. But if you associate with others who are already doing what it is you want to do, and you read stories about them, and you identify with them mentally, pretty soon you will do what they do. You will see life from their point of view. And so this is why the ancient sages were very strong on this point, that we should associate with the wise and illumined souls. If we don't know too many wise souls in physical bodies, although there are more than you would suppose, but sometimes as we are conditioned and a little bit self-centered, we don't see it, even though it's in front of us. You can identify with them mentally as you read books by and about individuals who have made the grade spiritually. And as you read and as you associate, you begin to identify and you begin to say to yourself, well, I can do this, or I see what they're talking about. It's almost as if that was my experience. And you come very close to this thing. It's a matter of a change in viewpoint. Now, when the thoughts settle down and you maintain your awareness, you're going to find yourself moving into this clear consciousness. As simple as that. The yogis claim that if you can analyze the sleep state, you can understand the nature of God, or this consciousness. Provided you analyze it from within. If you watch the process of going to sleep and let the body shut down as if it were going to sleep and relax and disconnect, as far as you're concerned, disconnect your awareness from this world and yet retain your awareness of who you are, your awareness of awareness, you would be in a state very similar to the superconscious state. And eventually you would experience that state. You see, most of us are identified with the body and with our environment. And we also receive a steady inflow of impressions. These impressions agitate the mind, cause us to associate, to form pictures, to react. But in meditation, when you relax and you disconnect temporarily from this world, these impressions cease to flow in, cease to stir you up. And if you sit long enough in the silence with your attention lifted, the thoughts will settle down. And as the thoughts settle down, you rise in consciousness. Let me go very briefly over the 8 stages of a successful meditation experience. First 2 stages are very important and often overlooked, unfortunately. First stage, we should observe certain rules. Now, I don't mean we have to be real goody-goody and holy and all that, but we should be constructive. We should align ourselves with the basic principles of life. We should do unto others, that sort of thing. We should do what we can in a positive way to ensure peace with our environment, to come to a realization of, to come to an attunement with the universe. And number 2, we should avoid doing those things, saying those things, thinking those thoughts, feeling those feelings, and so on. Should avoid those things which cause us to be disturbed. Should avoid those things which prevent us from calming down, from being positive, from maintaining a high level of inspiration. Then we should assume a proper meditation posture, a comfortable position. Some individuals say, well, I like to lie down because I can relax best in that position. Unfortunately, most of us sleep very well in that position. And I admit there are a few who can lie down and meditate and do beautifully, perform beautifully, but most people, when they lie down, they have the tendency to drop the eyes and slip off into a subconscious sleep state or a semi-sleep state, and they delude themselves into thinking that they've gone into a superconscious state. So for the most of us, we should sit upright. Sit upright in a comfortable chair, spine straight, head erect, eyes lifted to the point between the eyebrows. We'll get into that in a moment. And then comes the next stage, 4th step, the control of the life force in the body. Control of the life force in the body, called in Sanskrit pranayama, not breath control, as has been erroneously translated, but life force control. The life force flowing through your body is synchronized with your breathing action, and of course your mental activity is tied in with the activity of life force in the body and the activity of breathing. Therefore, you can control the breathing process. You can control the activity of the mind and also control the life force in the body. So you try it. So you sit in the silence and you perform a simple exercise like watching the breath. Now someone will say, that sounds like a yogi breathing exercise to me, and aren't they dangerous? Well, I'm so sick of that. You know, people have been reading these books by perhaps written by teachers who mean well, but who never practiced the art, and they read these stories about how dangerous it is to meditate and practice these simple techniques. I'll grant you there may be techniques of holding the breath and certain rhythms of breathing that might not be too good for you if you practice them without supervision. But simply watching the breath isn't going to hurt anybody because you breathe all the time. So all I'm going to ask you to do is simply watch the breathing process. What could be easier than that? So you go into the silence, you watch the breathing process, you hold the attention to the third eye, and what happens? You are beginning to be a practitioner of pranayama. You're getting to be a pretty good yogi right off the bat. You're controlling the flow of life force in the body, because what are you doing? The body's relaxed, you're watching the breath, you have something to concentrate upon, and the attention is here. As the muscles relax, the life force doesn't have to stay there. Automatically, it's going to follow the flow of your attention, which is here. It's going to be lifted up the spine into the head. It's going to reinforce the chakras or nerve centers in the head. It's going to induce a certain state of consciousness. You can't help but experience a breakthrough in consciousness if you follow this simple technique. It's a very simple technique that anyone can practice. All right? Sometimes a person will say, well, I try to watch the breath and then I get into trouble. My breathing doesn't come regularly. It stops, or I breathe fast, or I get tense. Well, don't try so hard. Just relax and watch the breathing process. Or if you don't want to do that, just relax and put the attention here and feel the energy and the feeling nature flow into the third eye. Just rise in consciousness. Just take the attitude, I can do it. You see, you have to have a good opinion of yourself. You have to believe that you can do it. Now, many individuals will say, well, to get ahead in this world, you've got to amount to anything. You've got to believe you can operate. You've got to have faith in yourself. You've got to believe you can carry your projects through to completion. You've got to believe. All right? I'll buy that. Likewise, when you meditate, you've got to believe you can get results. And you have to sit down and you have to say to yourself words to the effect, this meditation experience is going to be a wonderful experience for me. And you have to have this expectancy. You have to expect results. Now, I'm not going to suggest that you visualize and you project a fantasy and kid yourself, but at least you are open-minded about this thing. All right. That's the fourth stage, the stage of life force control. Withdrawing the energy from the external sense organs, sending it back to the spine, up the brain. It isn't as difficult as it sounds. All right. As the life force withdraws from the body, flows into the brain, up the spine into the brain, you find after a while that you disconnect from this world. That is, you aren't aware of what's going on in this world. Nothing to be afraid of. I'm not talking about projecting astrally or any kind of funny business, but you are just going to be you're going to be aware within, intensely aware. And since you aren't aware of your environment, then the noises and the ordinary distractions aren't going to get through and aren't going to stir you up. All right. Now, this leads logically to the next step, which is the level of the interiorized mind. The interiorized mind. That is, you are within. In the temple of silence, you are still aware that you are working with the mind. And you can direct your attention to any point in this particular space, or in the astral realm, psychic realms, in the mental realms. You can be aware at any point in space simply by willing to be there. This is when you can give your readings, you can be aware of many things, and you can look into your own body and see the organs suspended in light and so on. And first time I saw the organs in the body suspended in light, I thought I was kidding myself, or that it was some sort of a mental picture. And I didn't know what to look for, and I was meditating at that time 3 or 4 hours a night, and I could get the white light quite easily at that time, and I relaxed, and all of a sudden it was as though I were a point of awareness back here, behind the body. I can look into the body and see all the organs suspended in a mellow white light. And I saw them just as clearly as you see them in an anatomy chart. And later on, I read in one of the commentaries on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali that at a certain stage in meditation, you get to the point where you are interiorized and you break loose from body identification, and you have the ability to be aware at any point in space, even be aware of what's going on inside of your body, or even what's going on within the body of another person. This is when you are free from the body. You are a unit of awareness, but you are still working with the mind. Now, the problem here is, where are you going to direct the attention? Where do you go from here? In the ancient philosophy, we consider 9 attributes of spirit. 9 attributes of spirit. We consider them because, understanding these 9 attributes of spirit, we can contemplate one or a number of combinations of these attributes, and it gives us something to concentrate upon in meditation. All right. What are the attributes? Light. You can contemplate light. This is a positive meditation. You can contemplate the cosmic sound. Shabda yoga is a technique, is a system of yoga taught by some, where they teach you how to listen to the cosmic sound or the cosmic vibration. And it's tied in with mantra yoga, which I'll discuss in a few moments. Or you can be aware of peace, consciousness, or love, or bliss, or joy. Joy comes before bliss, because bliss is joy, which is stabilized by calmness. Then the realization of omnipresence, all presence. Realization of omnipotence, all power, not personal power, but identification with the power. There's only one power. And omniscience, all-knowingness, and moving into that point of view. You see, it isn't that we acquire power, or that we acquire knowledge, or that we acquire these things, but it's a matter that we break the shell and we come into the realization of the power which is existing, of the knowledge which is existing, and of the presence which is, and so on. It's a matter of coming to a point of self-realization. All right, and so we have the power, or the ability, to direct the attention at will to one or a number of these attributes, and it depends upon your psychological makeup and your natural tendency. Women like the idea of God is love, God is peace, God is joy, calmness, devotion, that sort of thing. Men quite often like that, but a lot of men like the idea of contemplating the light, or contemplating the cosmic power, or the cosmic will, or the cosmic, or however they want to look at it. And so it depends on the individual. All right. A steady flow of attention to any one of these attributes is contemplation. Contemplation. Contemplation leads eventually to realization. Really, contemplation is meditation. Steady contemplation is meditation, which leads to realization or an identification with the object contemplated. This is the goal of yoga practice, and the goal of all mystical discipline. We direct the attention to the absolute, the idea being that we want to become one with the absolute and experience this state of samadhi, or complete identification. Now, wherever you direct your attention, there you identify. Why are we identified with the body? Because, for the most part, this is all we know. We think that the body is the end-all, and this world is all there is. It's all we know, and we have identified with it. But most of you know from some experience, or at least intuitively, that there's something behind the body. There's something more than the body, something more than this appearance world. So these are the 8 steps in meditation. Now, as you awaken in consciousness and you begin to see these things, as you awaken, problem comes. Next, what shall I do with what I see? Some individuals want to develop their psychic nature. They want to learn to read auras and to give readings and to practice telepathy and develop their feeling nature and so on. Others don't feel drawn to this at all. It's a matter of an individual's own unfoldment, what he wants to do. And also some individuals awaken quite in one direction and not in another, without a well-rounded development. For instance, I, for a long time, never saw auras around anyone. I couldn't see auras. I tried and I couldn't see auras. And I got to the point where someone showed me one time how to look within the third eye and relax and attune with a certain person, and I could see the reflection of the aura in the third eye. So I get the same colors up here as this sensitive claim that he saw with his eyes open. So I don't see the colors too easy around the body. I get them in the third eye if I tune in with the person, sometimes who is miles distant. But my feeling nature is more acute, and I can meet a person or tune into a person, be aware of a person, and sort of get the full impact of that person, you know. And one nice thing about that, after a while, you get shockproof, and you realize everything's all right in its place. I'm like Brother Dave Gardner, the nightclub comedian. I didn't go to the nightclub to hear him, but maybe I did, but I didn't heard him on record. And saw him on the Jack Parr show. Someone asked him one time what he believed in. He said, "I believe in everything." That's a good, safe response. You say, if you believe in everything, it's all right, because that means everything is the right place, and you can't go wrong. And I believe in everything in its place, because how else are you going to be cosmic conscious? Because people say, well, I want to be cosmic conscious. And they start saying, well, you know, so-and-so, they do this and they do that, or these people live that way, and so on, and they condemn and find fault. And, well, isn't that part of the whole thing? Isn't that part of the picture? You know, it isn't. How is it sustained? If there's only one power, one presence, one mind, then what are these appearances that appear to be just these situations which appear to be discordant and decadent and undesirable in the minds of some? What sustains them? From whence does the power come? There's only one power. Even that situation which you and I may not desire to associate with, it couldn't have any reality if it weren't for that one reality. There's only one presence, one power, one mind, one consciousness, one substance variously formed. And if this is true, and I believe it is, then it means to be cosmic conscious means that we've got to accept all the appearances in their place. It doesn't mean that we have to choose to live in a manner that is distasteful to us, but within ourselves, we can't reject it as being separated from the picture. All right. So we awaken, we become psychic, perhaps we don't. I talked with a man who was a prominent metaphysician. He's got about 25 books to his credit, hardcover books, about 3 every year comes out. He's a wizard with books. And very popular, travels around the world, and very absolute teaching, very good, inspirational. And I meditated with him a few years ago for a brief period of time. People came to me and said, "You must hear this man." Well, at that time, I was pretty hip on the idea of yoga, of karma as being equated with punishment, and which I don't agree with that anymore. At that time, I thought it was. And this little lady came up and she said, "Well, so and so wouldn't agree with you." My teacher said, "Wouldn't agree with you." And she kept telling me this so often, and I got to the point, who in the hell is this guy? I thought. And what do I care whether he agrees with me or not? But she gave me one of his books, and it was pretty good. And so he came to town, and she set up an appointment. That's a nice thing, you know. If you're being led of the Spirit, or if you're open-minded, you don't have to make the first move all the time yourself. Sometimes others come forward and make the move for you. So she set up the appointment, and I went to visit him, paid him a courtesy call, and talked with him, and I liked him. And he was radiant, and he was gracious, and he was all the nice things, all the nice qualities. He had them. And we talked a while, and we found out that we knew some of the same people. He knew Yogananda years ago, and I said to him, "What did you think of him?" Because one of his students had said, "Well, he doesn't agree with this and that and the other thing." And I thought, well, when I read his book and I met him in person, I thought, well, gee, we agree on most things. So I asked him, I said, "Did you know Yogananda?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What do you think of him?" He said, "I loved him like a brother." Turned out they were very close. The only difference was Yogananda taught techniques. He was from India. He was the yoga approach of for meditation. He taught techniques, scientific techniques of controlling the mind, emotions, and so forth. And this man didn't teach technique, and he didn't use technique. He didn't have to because he was a natural. He was one of these fellows who would just sit down and float off into it. He didn't have to use technique. Well, the techniques are for the individuals who can't float off into it. And what are you going to do if they can't? You can't just let them sit there forever. So he was a natural. He could just sit there and throw the breath and go into this state. And he thought everyone ought to be able to do it. Well, wouldn't that be nice if everyone could do it? But I said, well, did you get the Kriya initiation, a certain meditation technique that went along with that initiation? He said, yes. And I thought, well, I didn't pay dirt here. I said, well, do you practice it? He said, no. I said, why? He said, well, that wakes up the psychic centers, you know. We can't have that. Well, I didn't know why we couldn't have that, but he was pretty set on the idea that we couldn't have that. And I passed that off. We meditated for a while together, and he really had, as far as I'm concerned, a real depth. I mean, he was really with it. And a year later, in one of his publications that he issued to his students, someone gave me a copy, and I saw it. He was vacationing in Europe. He was visiting a castle, in the grounds of the castle, and he was being shown around by a guide. And he said, and here is the fellow, mind you, that said, we can't have any of this psychic business. He said, as he was being shown around the castle, he said, my vision opened, and I saw another world, and I met the abbot of a monastery, and we communed telepathically. I walked in this world, viewing the sights of the castle and the grounds. Spiritually, I discerned the other world and communed with this man, and he taught me things and told me things about healing and so on, which are very similar to what I already teach. This was the man who a year before said, we can't have any of this sort of thing. Well, it was all right. He didn't get it through concentration on the spinal centers to open them up, because he was working on through the head center. He was working through that center, and when he came to a point, he opened up into it anyway. And so it is. So we have different individuals who have their own peculiarities, their own way about going about this thing, and yet the wonderful thing is there are so many systems, ways, and techniques that fit the various personality types. Many individuals tell me that they try to practice techniques of meditation and concentration, and the more they try, the more tense they become, the more difficult it becomes. So I would say use the technique or the method of meditation that brings results for you. I change around, I shuffle around the various things. Now I haven't used techniques for months, because sometimes I do and I go stale. It becomes a routine, it becomes a chore. And so I don't use the techniques. I don't use the prayer techniques and affirmation techniques and visualizing techniques. I get sort of tired of the whole thing. I just chuck it to one side. I just sit down, take a deep breath, and go off into it. And I think eventually we should do that. But then if I find sometimes that I'm sort of loaded down with a little bit of concern or tension that I can't go into it, then I use techniques. So it's nice to have the techniques just in case. All right. So you come into these various levels of realization, and you come into what they call the powers. Now I'm sure you've heard of the powers that come as you awaken spiritually. In Sanskrit they call them the cities or the occult powers, and there are a variety of them. And some individuals will say, well, you oughtn't to do anything with them, because if you do, you can become a fallen saint before long, and you can suffer, and you can be punished, and that sort of thing. My thought is, and I think it's logical, that if you aren't going to be able to express yourself in these new areas of consciousness, why even bother to experience them? We can function on that level of consciousness where we feel natural, and just as you can operate in this world according to your level of consciousness, when you break through into a new level of consciousness and your sphere of activity increases, you ought to be able to operate in that sphere. No reason why not. As long as you aren't selfish, as long as your motives are pure, as long as you are attempting to live a constructive, life, uh, there's no danger. There's no danger. And I have yet to find a person, and I have been around quite a bit, and I've been from one end of the country to the other, and I've been in contact with an awful lot of people, and I have never yet seen a case where a person has gone off the deep end or suffered because of premature awakening of the occult centers. And I've been involved with a lot of groups, and I've seen a lot of people who've practiced techniques, yoga techniques, and various techniques, and I've never seen one person to get upset because of a premature awakening of the occult or psychic centers. I only had one experience relating to that. I'll tell you about it very briefly. When I was out west, I gave a series of lectures one time in a certain city, and I made a mistake. It was my fault. I didn't screen the students for a certain class that I gave. What I had to say wasn't at all dangerous, but the only thing is there was a young lady who came with her mother, who had been studying this material for years, and with her mother and a friend. She came because she had gone to her psychoanalyst, who was also interested in metaphysics and hypnosis and so on. And this lady, her analyst, had said, "Go to hear this man Davis because you will learn things there, very interesting, and you'll be the life of the party. You'll have a lot of things to talk about when you go out in these social gatherings." Her problem was she was a wallflower, and she couldn't mix socially. She didn't have anything to talk about. She wasn't unusual anyway, and didn't have any outstanding ability or gifts, and she wasn't too well educated. And it had been a shotgun wedding, that sort of thing, and she wasn't too happy with her marriage. And this lady said, "Go hear Davis talk because he'll tell you many things that you can relate to your friends in social gatherings, and it'll make you, popular." Well, I should have told her to go on home and not to come because she didn't know what I was talking about. And she sat there and just absorbed everything. I talked about the chakras and other planes and astral projection and meditation and the works. And I thought, well, it can't hurt anybody as long as they're in the right mind. And she didn't show up for a while, and pretty soon one afternoon I went to the doorbell rang, went to the door, and this girl's mother and her husband were there. And I had a couple of uneasy moments. Didn't know what was going to come off next, and they came in and sat down and said I had better close that girl's centers. I didn't know what the devil they were talking about, but I had better just close that girl's centers. Well, I said, "Where'd you get the idea her centers were open?" And they said, "Well, they had taken her to this analyst who was also a student of the occult, and she had said that her centers were open. That was her problem." And so I I got dressed, got my coat, hat on. I went over to see this analyst. I talked with her, and I said, "What is this idea of this girl's centers being open? What centers are you talking about?" And she said, "Oh, why, dear boy, don't you know about the centers?" And she got into a huff, and she ran across the room and got a book on theosophical book, where they had a chart of the centers and flopped it open and showed me all about the centers. I just let her run down, and we talked for a while, and turned out that here's what was happening. The girl would go home at night after a lecture and go to sleep, and she began to dream about me. She thought that I was projecting astrally and coming to visit her in the dream state. And she woke up and told her husband this, and he didn't like that one bit. And they didn't get along, you see. As I mentioned, it was a shotgun wedding, and she resented him and wouldn't have anything to do with him after the first child was born. And to compensate for her lack of communication on this level, she had to have some fantasy, And so I was the handiest one, and she began to dream about me. And then it came out, according to her analyst, that I looked like the doctor who delivered her. It's pretty complex. I'm not sure that had any bearing on the thing at all. But turned out that a Scientologist came along and heard of the situation, took this girl in hand, and in 2 hours cleared up most of the problem. Problem was she was stuck emotionally at about the age of 12. She just had never grown past that point emotionally. And so she was living in a fantasy world. Couldn't assume responsibility as a wife. Couldn't go out and get a part-time job. Couldn't do anything. But just act like a little girl and who had to have attention, had to be taken care of. In just a few hours, he was able to shake her up a little bit and get her to look at herself and to encourage her to go out and get a job. And she worked behind a counter in the drugstore or something for a while. The last time I heard, she was in pretty good shape. It wasn't her centers at all. It was simply a mixed up situation there. And any good counselor should have seen that long before. So I've never seen a real situation evolve because of a premature awakening of psychic centers. As far as I know, it's unfounded. It burns me a little bit because sometimes, although I try to be a little blasé, but I gave a pre-initiation, yoga initiation over in Dayton, Ohio last spring. I flew over in February, and I have that magic touch. Whenever I go to Ohio in February, I always take the snow with me. And I got snowbound, but that's another story. And we had about 20 students, yoga students, in his home in the suburbs of Dayton. And many of them had studied religious science, and some of them are Unitarians, but they were all practitioners of yoga, and mostly the postures, the hatha yoga, but some had practiced meditation. And so we spent 2 days, Friday and Saturday, with meditation techniques and so on. And I thought everything was just fine. And it was. And I left and they were all just vibrating and everything was just great. And I got back and the reports came by mail. Marvelous experiences in meditation, great technique. Meditation group was progressing wonderfully well. Then along came a traveling lecturer. Came to town and got up and gave a talk. And he was a theosophist, and I'm not blaming it on theosophy. This is the man's own personal view, I believe. Got up, and someone asked him during the question period what he thought about meditation techniques, where you concentrated in the third eye, or this will center at the point between the eyebrows. He launched into a tirade as to how dangerous it was, how you'd awaken the kundalini and you would flip your lid if you weren't careful. Well, about 2/3 of that group quit meditation right then and there, and as far as I know, they haven't resumed because I've seen them since. We chuckle about it. I'm not too pushy, but they were the ones who were waiting for an excuse to quit anyway, and this gave them a good reason for quitting. And there were one or two who were shaken by what he had to say, because after all, he was an older man and spoke with authority. He sounded like he spoke with authority, but he couldn't back up his statements with any case histories. Well, this is how it goes. You know, you get the idea today that seems logical to you, and a week from now, someone else comes along with a contrary idea, and because it's newer and perhaps told to you with a little more conviction, that's the thing that you react to. But I think each individual ought to develop or come to a point where he's got a zest for life, or he's determined to break these psychological barriers, where he's determined to go all the way in this incarnation. And I can't stress too much the importance of a decision to have the ultimate experience. Now you're going to say, well, Davis, does that mean we can all sit in samadhi before we leave this plane? Well, I'm not going to guarantee that. But I know that you will go further if you believe in the possibility than you will if you don't believe at all. It's just like a person who tries to extend himself in anything. If he tries to beat his record, he's going to do more than he would otherwise. He's going to produce. Likewise, you have to make a decision. You have to decide, I am going to experience superconsciousness in this incarnation. Years ago, when I was just a teenager, I made that decision. When I read the books, I've always had a high opinion of myself. And I've always thought, well, I was right up there with the best, as far as possibilities were concerned. And well, why not? You know, they say it's crowded at the bottom of the ladder, really. But and I used to read these books on yoga philosophy and Yogananda's autobiography and Paul Brunton's books and Theo Spinard's books and so on. And as I read these books, I used to relate with what I read. I used to say to myself, "My golly, I can almost see for myself what they're talking about. I can just about I can understand that." And I began to relate to what I read. And when I went to California, and I spent time 3 years in the monastery and the works, vegetarian diet, and seclusion, and meditation 8 hours a day, and that sort of thing. And I could never understand why others, not all of the others, but some of the others, were so pessimistic. And they used to go into meditation with an attitude of, well, I haven't gotten anything yet, but maybe I will, through the grace of God, if I stick with it. Well, they're always bowing and scraping and talking about the master or this brother or that sister or somebody who really had it, you know, implying that they were about that big by comparison. I used to wonder, what's wrong with these people? Don't they believe in themselves? Don't they believe what they read? Don't they believe what they hear and see? Can't they catch this vision for themselves? I resolved right in the beginning that I was going to get the whole thing. I've seen doors open one after another, and sometimes situations evolving that aren't too pleasant as a result of, I think, a basic decision. If you make a basic decision, since the law is that desire fulfills itself, if you make a decision to have an experience, things will work out that you might have that experience. The acceptance of the dream fulfilled automatically wills the means for the fulfillment. You might want to ask that into the subconscious. The acceptance of the dream fulfilled automatically wills the means for the fulfillment. And if you begin to dream, I mean imagine, and picture and believe, and see yourself as you can be, you're going to move into that picture. And you're going to have sometimes experiences that aren't too pleasant. I'm not going to say God is going to test you and you're going to suffer and that sort of thing. But what I mean is this, that in order to have the experience that you desire, it may be that you have to experience the breaking up of a present situation. It's an existing situation. It may be so that the present situation has to dissolve to make way for the situation that you really desire. So regardless of what happens to you, if your eye is always on the goal, what happens between now and then is just so much activity, as long as you are moving steadily to the goal. And you can see day by day and month by month and year by year, you're becoming more calm, more understanding, more lovable, more kind, and so forth, more objective, while you know you're making progress. So you have to have belief in yourself. And you have to believe that you can meditate and get results. And you have to, I believe, get through to the superconscious state. It may only come for a flash of a second, and then a minute, and then longer, for longer periods of time, until you are spending hours in that state of superconscious awareness, and then something begins to happen, a sort of feed down, as it were, into the body, and a transformation takes place, a change in vibration, a change in character and conduct. You know, when you are experiencing enlightenment, even to a small degree, and you persist at this thing, there is a transformation of your character and conduct. Enlightenment transforms you. Now, overnight you aren't going to be a saint, perhaps, but eventually you will experience a transformation. You will begin to be aware of your subtle body. You'll begin to feel warm, to glow, to radiate. And you will be conscious of the fact that you are an instrument for the flow of this power in a very practical sense. Coming up on the bus to New York, I was in New York Thursday night and Friday night. And coming on the bus from New York, I sat beside a lady. I didn't have a reservation. I got 8:25 at the bus depot, and they said, "You want to go on the 8:30 bus?" I said, "All right." So I got out, and they put me on the bus next to a lady, and I sat down and read U.S. News and World Report and got the world in shape, and let her read it while I read something else. And finally, we got tired of reading. She began to talk. I seldom talk when I travel. I don't talk with anyone else because I suppose that's still the my nature, the contemplative. I'm not too much of an extrovert by nature, unless I got the floor, then you can't stop me. But ordinarily, I don't start things like that. And so she began to talk, and we chatted for a while, and she happened to be going up to Connecticut to talk for a few college groups, foreign students at colleges, and she was a foreign language representative for Quantania Foundation in Baltimore, and we shared some common thoughts, and she had practiced yoga on the West Coast, and we saw eye to eye on just about everything. And she told me an experience she had a few months ago when the weather wasn't too good. She was going to speak at a Methodist church in Baltimore, and they left the Quantania Foundation in time to get to the Methodist church, and they came out onto the main road and got out a few miles and ran out of gas. The lady who was driving the car said, "Well, what possessed me?" She said, "I always check my tank, but I didn't this morning. We're out of gas." Looked both directions. Early Sunday morning, it wasn't a car in sight, and they had to be at church at a certain time. This lady said that she tries to live intuitively. She tries to feel that she is being led of the Spirit, that she is being guided, directed. So she told this lady who was driving, she says, "Just relax. Just relax, and let's just know the truth about this thing, that if we are in our right place, and if we are meant to be at this place," not being fatalistic, but she felt she was meant to be there. And she said, if we are in our right place and working in harmony with this thing, we'll be there at the right time. Don't worry about it. And they relaxed. And in a few minutes, the lady looked up in the rearview mirror. Here came a car. She got out. She was told to get out and flag it down and stop. A man got out and said, "What can I do for you ladies?" And they told him the problem. He said, "It just so happens I've got a gallon can of gas in the trunk, and I've got a funnel." And put some gas in the car, and away they went. And so she was rather impressed with this idea of the funnel. She said to herself, "Well, my golly, how many people driving down the road would have gas in the car and a funnel too?" And how likely is it that they will be the first one to come along and be right there at the right time? And so she used that simile in her talk that morning. She said about the idea of the funnel, but saying that we are funnels through which this power can flow and be distributed. This is the thing. You know, there are two views. There is the view that we should retire from the world and commune with God, with the Absolute. And then there's the view that we should take an active part in this world. Well, I hold for the balance. I believe we should retire until we come to the point where we make our contact, get our realization, and then we should do what we can do in a constructive manner to be the instrument for the flow of this power into this world in a very practical sense, in a constructive manner. I believe a person who has writing ability ought to write, if he's writing fiction, he ought to write stories that will cause his readers to form constructive mental pictures instead of trash. I mean, there are enough people writing trash, you know. And so why not write in a constructive style? You can contribute as no one else can. There's something you can do in this world that no one else can do. I believe this. I don't believe in competition. I don't believe that you have to compete with another person. I believe you can do something that no one else can do. Last Sunday in the newspaper, I saw in a photo illustrated story, mentioned that in a few communities in Maryland, certain months of the year, that several individuals in these communities make quite a bit of money by trapping muskrats. And it showed one man who was the champion muskrat skinner. And he could skin 5 muskrats in 1 minute and 35 seconds. Now, there's sort of a talent of some kind. On What's My Line, a couple of weeks ago, there was a gal who came on. They tried to guess what she did, and she was a banana peeler. She peeled 900 bananas a day, and for cake mix outfit that made banana cakes. Well, she had a talent. That was a banana every 4 seconds, 8 hours a day. I mean, that was something, some kind of patience. But in a very real sense, I believe there's something you can do that no one else can do. If you can find out what it is. All right. So meditation, self-contemplation. By self, I mean self with a capital S, or soul contemplation. Being aware of who you are. You are a soul. Now, you don't have a body. I mean, you don't have a soul. You are a soul. You are a soul. You operate body and mind. You are not the mind. You're not the mind. Some individual has said in the past, and modern people repeat it, I think, therefore I am. Well, that may give you some sense of being real, but it isn't. You don't have to think to be real. You don't have to think to be aware. Because you can watch the mind in action, and if you watch the mind in action, it means you are something other than the mind. Patanjali, the ancient yoga teacher and sage, puts it this way. Since the mind is the object perceived, it cannot be the ultimate reality. You perceive the mind. As you go into the silence, you see the mind. I talked with Ernest Wilson. Some of you are Unity students. I'm sure you've read Unity literature. I talked with Ernest Wilson of Unity in Los Angeles, California, 3 or 4 years ago. Ernest Wilson has the largest Unity church in the world. He has 7,000 members in Southern California at last count, perhaps more by now. And he told me that when he lectures on Sunday morning, that he is aware at times that he is about twice or 3 times as large as he really is, and he isn't very big. And he said he feels that he gets 2 and 3 times larger than he is, and he gets up and he sways and he feels large, and he says, I'm aware of the thoughts that they have, I'm aware of their feelings, and I'm aware, as it were, of compartments in mind. And he said, I can just reach into the right compartment and fill the need and do it at will. He claims this is his experience. And he must be able to do it because he draws a fabulous crowd. Sunday after Sunday, they drive all the way from San Diego and all distant points to come to hear him speak. And he has that knack, that gift. A brother disciple of mine talks for self-realization in the Midwest. He's a very advanced soul, a very aware soul. I don't like this idea, this word advanced and high and low. Of course, you want to use it, it's all right. But, you ever see these groups that say, well, so-and-so's has a high consciousness. And, well, it just depends how you're going to judge these things. But anyway, I think he's pretty aware. And he claims that sometimes he's talking to the group on Sunday morning, 100 or 200 in the auditorium, and he finds himself sort of out here. And the physical body is here, just going right to it. And the astral body is here, and the mental body is here, and he's here as a sort of a point, a speck of awareness. You see, the soul doesn't have to have a body to be real. You see? But he's out, he sees the whole thing. Astral body, mental body, astral body, physical body, talking, carrying on, and after a while he gets back and closes the service in time. So on. But that's his experience. And these things happen to him. And he told the experience that he had years ago, back in 1951, when Yogananda was in retreat in Southern California, near 29 Palms, California. A man from Cuba, a man from Mexico came, and they wanted to take initiation from him. Personally, Yogananda wanted to do it. He said he would, but he was in seclusion, and so he wired them and said, would they go to Detroit instead and get initiation from this man, his disciple. Then he called this man and asked him, would he give initiation? And he said, yes, of course. So they went to the city, to Detroit, and this man is a very successful businessman. But he has tremendous awareness. And he's been in this some 12, 15 years. And doesn't make any difference. 50 years. I've seen those 50 years that don't have anything. But he happened to be pretty well along. And these 2 men came into the office, and they sat there, and they were 3 or 4 hours, and they got the initiation, they meditated. And after it was over, they were in the silence, and this man heard sort of a whirring sound. He's off to one side. Okay, off to one side. He looked, he didn't see anything. And then he heard it again. He looked, And there was Yogananda sitting in a chair in a light body, just as real as anything. And I said, well, did the other fellow see him? You know, the old skeptic. And he said, no, but he said one man began to cry, and the other fellow, his hair stood on end. And that was the only way they could discern something different, you know, in the room. And so that lasted a little bit, and then he faded away, and the hair went back down, and the tears stopped, however it worked out. And the gentleman went back home, took him into the hotel, so went back home. Later that evening, the phone rang. It was Yogananda from California. And before this man could say anything, Yogananda said, see, I told you I'd be there. Because he told him earlier in the day, he said that he'd be with him in spirit. And he had this experience. He claims that he used to sit at his desk in downtown Detroit and in his private inner office, and all of a sudden, over in one corner, a light would build up, and this celestial being, this light, this being in a light body, this person, would walk out of that corner and walk over to the front of the desk and look down at him and tell him one or two things and go. And he told me they don't mess around either, don't waste any words. And he said the purer they are, the clearer the consciousness, the more subtle they are, and the higher they vibrate. This is how it is. You know what a god is, a god or a goddess, where they got the idea of the god and the goddess. A god or a goddess is simply a soul that has transcended this world and still dwells in realms of light. They still wear a light body, a celestial body. Because unless we discard all bodies and just become one with the ocean, we're going to have a body on some plane, because it's usual that we do it. We usually operate this way. So I think a body is a very important instrument on this plane. I can't quite figure out these people who don't like their body. I like my body. I shouldn't have said that, because I'll probably get some letters. Because I got a letter from a dear soul in Washington a few weeks ago. She'd been holding this in for about a year. She wrote and told me, she said, you said once at a public lecture that you loved your body. She said, so-and-so said you should not be body conscious and so on. Well, maybe I didn't make myself clear at that time. I'll try again. I think we should be fully aware of the body. I don't mean that we should become materialistic and so on, but the body is what? It is consciousness formed as a body. So why give ourselves, make it difficult by rejecting the body which is our instrument, the organ of the soul, the instrument to which we express on this plane. So why not put it in good shape? Why not raise the vibration? Why not clean it up? And why not make it a fit instrument for expression? Why not? Why not make it a good tempo? If you touch the superconscious realization and rest in that for a long period of time, this light will filter down in and through the body, and you'll see a very definite change over a period of time. And your friends, especially, who don't see you very often, they'll notice this change as they see you, and they'll remark about it. That's the best way, of course, to educate your friends to the facts of life, is to prove these things for yourself, and they will see the change in your life, and you'll radiate a silent blessing. Usually, the most lively part of the session is when we have questions. So why don't we have one or two? Frank? Yes.
You said you no longer thought of karma as a
punishment.
What do you think of it as?
Karma is simply a reactive patterns that we have in the subconscious. I think the idea of karma is punishment, although if I step on toes, don't mind me, because I'm strictly impersonal. I mean, I'm not going to take a personal judgment, but I don't think a person's failures, his problems, his misfortunes, his shutting down awareness, that we say are the result of karma or punishments as such. I think it's simply his reaction to life. You can take a person, for instance, who in the business world, and you can show him how to be a success in business. And then all of a sudden he gets to the point where he sort of feels that he's too successful and that he isn't right. He starts to feel guilty about it, and he fails. He has a built-in failure complex, and he fails. Someone will say that's karma, it's compensation for when he caused somebody else to fail. I don't believe that is true necessarily. You see. I finished for now, but I may have a rebuttal.
Karma is an opportunity for learning.
Well, how about being specific?
No thanks. I'll pass.
Yeah.
I know. Well, yes. I think I know something. I know something that I consider my karma in this life. All right. Before I had the understanding that I have now, I thought of that particular situation as being a punishment, as why did it have to happen to me?
So what is your excuse now?
My excuse?
Why does it happen? Why is it happening?
Why did it happen?
Yes.
Well, I hope I learned something.
Oh, it's over with now? It's finished?
I'm understanding it now.
But are you changing it? Do you like it?
Yes, I think so. I mean, there's nothing else. What else can I do?
I don't know what it is.
It's something I can't change.
I see. Something you can't change.
No. And so, now that I have more understanding.
You're just going to grin and bear it. Is that it? I see. So that's one way out. I think it's all right to be philosophical. I mean, you know,
I suppose what it amounts to. I mean,
it depends what the situation is.
Yeah.
You see, I don't think we ought to be stuck with a situation that we don't like.
No.
You know, if we don't see that it's doing us any good, really, or anyone else any good, I think we ought to change it.
We haven't learned until we do change.
That's all right. Thanks. I like that. We haven't learned until we do change it.
Well, all right. I can think of the situation that I'm thinking of, and I have to.
All right. All right.
I mean, I guess I'm insisting that I've learned it. Maybe I haven't, but I think so.
Because quite often, I've read this in some occult books and so forth. I heard it in lectures and so forth. The idea that your misfortunes and your troubles and your complexes and so forth, it's karma, and it's just check it out because you need it to be cleansed and purified and so on. I think when we come to the point where we understand the nature of this thing, we can live freely while we've mastered the thing. I think that's what we're here for, to master this thing.
Well, isn't that learning? Mastery?
All right. Well, mastery, yes. We've got to attain mastery. Oh, we should be more specific. Question, thought. Yes.
How about the time lag between the object desired and the fulfillment?
But conceivably, they could run into the right situation or go see the right person and do away with this time lag. You know, time factor doesn't have to be in there at all, really. A little bit, but not as much as most of us allow it to be.
It's our concept of time.
Our concept of time again gives us trouble. Many times we think that time changes things and so forth. Really, what time is our concept of time is an illusion. We simply shift our attention from event to event, and we think time is passing, but it isn't at all. And many times a person will say, "Well, I'd like to have a certain experience," and you see they're right on the verge of having it. So you say, "Well, why don't you go ahead and have the experience?" And, "Well, I'm not ready yet." What they mean is, "I'm not ready to accept it. I can't accept it." Or I want it to come my way. Or, well, they just will admit I've got cold feet and I can't assume the responsibility or whatever comes along with it. Yes.
Do you think a physical handicap is a state of karma of some kind?
A physical handicap is it a karmic condition? Well, I think that physical things, situations, conditions come into existence because of a mental pattern on the mental level. I don't necessarily mean in the mind, on the mental or subtle level of a person's being. Karma, in the sense that there is a pattern on a subtle level that's distorted, which causes the appearance, but not in the sense that it's punishment or a. My concept of karma is different. I don't think that it's too personal. Could you give me an instance, for instance, without being personal?
A child born with a handicap that they're born come into the world with it.
A child born with a handicap?
Yes.
We can say it's karma, but I don't think punishment. I think it's simply like a grown-up who will allow himself to indulge in a certain negative mental attitude and eventually wind up in an undesirable situation. He's brought it upon himself. We say, well, he's grown up, he should have known better, that's just tough. But he did it just the same. Well, if this condition, the experiences, is the result of his mental attitude, and we will accept that, then if he leaves the body, goes into the astral plane and reincarnates, I don't know whether you all believe in that or not, but I happen to go along with it, and is reincarnated, he might conceivably still manifest some imperfection due to the fact that he put this mental pattern in place at one time along his experience.
You mean in a previous
existence? Could be a previous existence. Although I don't like to relate everything to a previous existence because I don't think necessarily everything can be related to a previous existence. I think sometimes we just pick up things simply because we're here in the environment and we pick up impressions from other people or concepts and ideas that are floating in the ether. We just pick them up.
Well, you take the child that comes into the world handicapped, and it's handicapped from birth. Now, consciously, they had no physical realization. Mm-hmm. It either has come mentally or some other way.
I believe that we carry our desire patterns and our belief patterns and mental attitudes and so forth with us from incarnation to incarnation on the astral body, the electrical body.
So you think then that is why a person would come into the
sure.
world as a child?
Right. I believe so, but I don't equate it with punishment. You see.
No, not as punishment.
Not well, punishment.
It's a result of your own decision.
It's a result of a pattern being set, but it isn't necessarily that he did anything wrong in a moral sense, you know. Yes.
Punishment denotes revenge. Denotes a personal
getting even
feeling of revenge, and it isn't that. It's a discipline.
How about the other side of the coin? I mean, we're so lucky to be in this country.
We are.
Rather than some other
all right.
situation
so why are we here, huh?
And lucky in being in this good environment.
Well, we're here because we belong here. Do you go along with that?
We have to do with it.
Well, if it's true that we gravitate to that point in space on the globe, which is in agreement with our level of consciousness, when we come into incarnation, it's conceivable that we belong here.
Do we have a choice?
I don't think we have a conscious choice. I don't think the average person is aware enough before he's incarnated to have a conscious choice. I think it just happens. Yes.
I would like to get back to meditation.
Back to meditation? Good.
I tried meditation a few years ago, and I got to this certain point, and I was someplace, and I think the phone rang or something happened, and I just sort of came
trembled and shook up.
And since then, I've been
scared.
Mm-hmm.
See.
And I wondered if, when you get to that level,
what happens?
Yes, does this happen to other people?
Sure. What happens is your life force, I think, is withdrawn from the body a little bit. And when you're drawn back in, it comes back with a shock. And what you should do there is disconnect the phone. Oh, I tell you.
I'm sure when you have children,
well, if you're going to be that far gone, you have to get off someplace where you won't be bothered.
But I didn't know that I could go way out.
I know you were so fortunate.
But I've been frightened to try this.
You shouldn't be afraid. Never be afraid to meditate, but be sure you have privacy. That's the only thing. Be sure you have privacy for the period of time you're going to meditate.
Before you really try.
Yes, I would. Yes.
Thank you.
I recall a story that back in 1948, 49, Yogananda, my guru went through a long siege of ecstasy and samadhi and being transported in consciousness. And some disciples who were there at the time claimed that his body just practically lit up like a neon light and glowed. And for hours at a time, he was for I think 6 weeks in that state. And then 3 months, but he came out of it from time to time, took a little fruit and a little milk, and exercised the body. And one time he was in a state of samadhi, and there was no breath discernible. They couldn't tell he was breathing. And this happened quite often. And the ones who knew him knew that he'd come out when he got ready to. But there was a new lady on the floor who had never seen this. And she walked into the room, and there he was, in the chair, leaning back, and no life in the body. She was frightened. She got some smelling salts of the equivalent. Shook him a little bit, and tried to bring him around. And he came around all right, and he did just as you mentioned, because the life force poured back into the body with tremendous force, and the whole body just shook violently. And the life force poured back in. And she said, the poor lady, I had a fit right there, and scared her because she saw what had happened. And she thought, well, my God, what have I done? And then when he came out of it and got control of the body, he calmed her down and said it was all right. And he said, the energy that you saw displayed through my body just now will maintain it after I'm gone. And they found there's in 53 or 54, I think, in some of the files, this thing that had happened. They had recorded it at that time. And of course, when he passed in 52, that the body didn't show any signs of decay or anything for over a month, almost 2 months. But it was the same thing. It came back with such force. Because when you are really in deep meditation, quite often, not always, but quite often, the life force withdraws from the muscles. And you're relaxed. It goes into the spine and into the brain. And you're sort of disconnected from this world.
It's like floating.
Yes. And if you're brought back with a shock, it's a shock to the system. Nothing dangerous about it. And you won't go off and not come back. Someone will say good riddance, but I never saw anyone who really believes that.
I didn't understand that at the time, that's the reason. Of course, learned quite a
You're all right
bit.
now. Yes.
Well, you said privacy. This is in the beginning. Can provide you while you're on a plane or
No reason why not. That's right.
any place.
That's right.
While you're working.
In fact, you should come to a point after a while where you can do it while you're fully aware of your body. And you rest in that all the time.
You mentioned techniques for going into meditation. Once you've reached that level, are you conscious enough to bring yourself back at any point, or when you feel a need?
There's no problem about coming back because the subconscious patterns, which make us what we are so strong, so firmly embedded, they will come back to body awareness without too much trouble. There's no problem, no danger of getting out and not coming back, or of getting carried away and not coming
No,
back.
I'm thinking of this danger. I'm thinking of this
Time.
period.
No. Usually, if you want to, you can set it ahead of time. And just like when you go to sleep, you can say to yourself that you're going to get up at a certain time, and you do. Never happens to you? Oh, good luck. But if you meditate and you have this idea before you go off into meditation that you're going to meditate an hour, and just assume that you are, and meditate, and you'll find that about an hour later, all of a sudden you'll find yourself coming out of it. There's no problem.
Roy, don't get maybe personal. But I didn't come out of it. You move kind of slowly.
Some move kind of slowly, and some individuals. Oh yes, thanks for bringing that up, because when you come out of meditation ordinarily, until you get to the point where you're fully aware of the body at all times while you rest in this state, it's a matter of going in and coming out of meditation. What you should do, I believe, when you come out, is get reoriented with your environment. See? Because quite often, what I've seen, you've seen it too, people will dwell in meditation or prayer or idealistic thinking and get carried away. Then they come out and they'll walk around for about an hour with glazed eyes, They're out of touch with reality. And they can't function. They're of no earthly value to anybody. So when you're in meditation, if you have to get with it, and I think we should tune into this plane. Look around, look at the color of the walls, feel the floor under your feet, You want to take a drink of water or some coffee or a glass of milk, sweat sandwich, anything, to get body awareness, to get back here and now. This is good. It isn't a matter of getting away really from this realization, from this level, this reality. It's a matter of being here and seeing this reality as it is in relation to everything else. There's the thing. Yes.
One more question, Mr. Davis. It is important that we learn on the conscious level.
Learn on the conscious
spend
level.
So much time I want to phrase this, but I don't know just how to put it. Do you understand what I mean?
I think so. I think we should have a balance between a conscious level application, a study, and so forth, plus meditation. I believe so. Because I tell you why. You're probably already ahead of me. But I've seen so many people who think that they can get by just by going into the silence and getting their guidance, and they have nothing to do with mental science or the reading of these books that tell you how to live practically in this world, and they have no philosophy to speak of, and well, they haven't got their personal affairs in order for the most part, and they don't know how to get their affairs in order, even if they have the urge to get them in order. Ideally, a person could perhaps meditate and get his guidance, but I think we can work on both levels. I think we should read the best books on mental science and science of mind and how to live in this world and what's the rhyme and reason for the world and so on, philosophy, get these various viewpoints, at the same time meditate and confirm these things in our own meditation. But I think we have to have them both.
And then you can have all the knowledge and wisdom in the world, but then you have to learn to apply it.
Have to learn to apply it?
Well, in giving to others or loving.
That's right. In what to others?
In expressing love for others.
Expressing love. There's a tough question. Expressing love.
Well, this divine love. What good is it if we're not going to live with everybody and we don't do something?
That's true. I sort of assume that if we come to the point where we are in communication with life, we'll automatically be impelled to do something constructive, which means that we're going to do right by everybody, right down the line.
Well, I was thinking we can meditate and we can read and we can do all these things. If we don't apply it, what good is it?
All right, I'll buy
everyday association with.
I'll buy that. I think we have to live the life to the best of our ability. Apply it, as you say. It ought to reflect in our daily affairs. I think so.
Now, the thing that along that line, the thing that we see meditation is the same thing that Christ saw it, which was the power of God's Spirit to enable him to live as God, even though he was living in the human body. Isn't that correct?
Oh, I'll go along with that.
That's what we're striving to.
Yes, we're striving to be aware of our own divinity.
Yeah.
While
we're being driven to do this from within.
I think so.
Motivated by our own soul that's
right.
pushing us, and don't you feel that the conflict in life today and the thing that creates great many of our mental disturbances and unhappiness is the people that keep resisting this.
I think we do resist it too much. I think there are those who are the conformists and they're afraid to let themselves be.
And we have the conflict and the unhappiness and all the trouble.
I think so. But I think we're breaking out of our shell more and more.
Why? I don't feel that we're being driven. We're being allowed.
Being allowed. All right. However you want to phrase it.
Well, yes, I wouldn't say that anybody was kicking us. There's a magnetic pull here.
There's something
There's
inside.
a force that you cannot.
That's conscious.
Well, it motivates us.
Yeah.
It motivates us. And the interesting thing, after we go so far, we apply our disciplines, and we do the best we can in the right direction, and it's effort. I mean, sometimes it's hard work in the beginning. And we get so far, and we seem to make contact, and after that, we're sort of drawn the rest of the way. And we can't stop if we wanted to. It's so tough when people tell me, well, I'm going to give up this metaphysical bit. They say, I can't, they say I'm going to quit it. But you can't quit once you get into it.
It's like you get on the escalator, you're going right.
That's right. Once you get started, you can't quit. I do think that sometimes we get intellectual indigestion by reading too many different viewpoints, without getting them digested. But I don't think we can never turn our back on the spiritual path once we've got the initial awakening. And we're drawn irresistibly. We can't help it. which is a good thing.
Do you think if we could develop some sort of meditation science I don't know how you do it, but it certainly seems to me it should be done at a young level in life, like they do in India. So we could get children thinking along this term that we could actually help them reach this goal
Quicker?
much quicker and
Well,
be doing them a favor at the same time.
I think we should make it available to them if they want it at a certain age. It's an individual thing again, you know.
How do you go about developing a child's appreciation, the desire for this thing that you know he should have in view of all the conflicts that he's faced with today? That is a terrific problem.
We have the problem with children and with other people. How do we make them want it? Well, I think we have to be very careful with it.
That's been creating an appetite.
Well, yes, but I think we have to be very careful we don't violate their own privacy and their own pattern by assuming that we know when's the best time that they should get their feet wet. You know. I think we can live the life. We can be the example. We can radiate this from ourselves. You know, when they are in our presence, we can lay a book down in front of them sometime, take them to a meeting. But I don't think we can force the issue too much. We can make it available, but after that, what are you going to do? See? I do think too many metaphysicians and truth students and occult students and yoga students are shy about this thing. And I don't believe that people ought to convert to stand on the street corner and grab people by the arm. But I do think that we ought to be a little bit bolder in saying, well, gee, I go along with this, and this helps me, and why don't you give it a whirl, you know? I find a lot of thinking people who are pretty deep into this. You'd never know it. And they wouldn't tell their friends, but they usually
I found that true.
But I find them all over the place.
I was surprised.
I still think you live it.
You what?
I still think you have to live it, not talk about it.
Live it. You have to live it, and you have to talk about it.
People will gradually come.
You'll find the ones you can talk to after a while. Yeah, that's true. Question or thought? We're going to have a break.
I wondered where the Bible was brought into this pattern, what way you.
How do I bring the Bible in?
Yes.
I knew I should have quit a minute ago. I don't usually get involved in the Bible.
That's the source of all, isn't it?
Oh, come on. Now, which Bible are you talking about? There are lots of Bibles. I know what you mean. Truth is there in any real Bible. The vitality is there. I think the things I'm talking about can be related to what is to be found in the Bible. In fact, right now I'm outlining a commentary on the New Testament to give the esoteric slant to it, explanation of it. I think the stories in the Bible and the teachings and the disciplines in the New Testament, I think they go hand in hand with what I'm talking about. I never understood the Bible until I studied yoga philosophy. And so there's two of us, three of us. Have started a club. I grew up in the United Brethren Church in Ohio, and I went to church because, well, you just had to. Dad said, well, under my roof, we're going to church. And foreign folks went to church. It was a community thing, and but I swear I didn't know what that preacher was talking about. I don't think he did. And I asked him a question when I was 15 years old. He couldn't answer me. Simple questions. What's faith? What's the Holy Ghost? And so forth. Well, double talk or pray, and you'll see it in time and that sort of stuff. And I think a minister, a really spiritual man, ought to have some of the answers. He ought to be able to explain some of the things. If he knows himself, he ought to be able to impart some of it. But then I studied yoga philosophy and Oriental philosophy, and really I don't believe you can understand the Bible, my viewpoint, unless you understand it from the Oriental viewpoint, because it's an Oriental scripture. Poetry and symbology is all Oriental. And I think one of the difficulties for many of our Western minds that try to interpret the Bible is that they're looking at it from the wrong angle, see, from the objective slant, and they don't see it from the inside. So what do you have? See? But I think it fits with the Bible. I think it fits with Hinduism and Buddhism and I think it's a basic truth that fits into any true or vital religious system. Yes.
I think you used the word called celestial indigestion. Getting viewpoints from too many different places. How do you avoid this, or is this just a necessary state that you go through?
I think we go through it. I wouldn't try to shelter anyone from getting this mental indigestion by getting too many viewpoints. But I think we have to come to the point after a while where we get back and look at it and put things in their right place. We can get cluttered and confused, and I think it's helpful to stick with a system that seems logical for a few months until we try it out, give it a fair trial. Also, I think if we stabilize ourselves with meditation, and we have a few basic principles that we adhere to, that we agree that they are real and basic, and we live our life accordingly, then I think we can investigate almost anything and see it in the light of our basic understanding that we're all right. I think, for instance, a person will study some of these basic principles, the nature of the soul, its relationship to body, mind, and the universe, and so forth, and really get an understanding of these principles. Then I think he can study anything, because he's always grounded in a basic philosophy that seems to be solid. That is solid, I believe. Then he can study anything and not be confused.
In the Ensenada Hermitage, was there a great deal of talk and discussion? Or was it mostly just the meditation?
Yes.
Following the techniques as Joe outlined for you.
Yes. In the retreat, the question was in the retreat in California where I was and others are, was the nature of the inquiry into this thing, this truth, is it through discussion and intellectual examination, or through meditation experience? Through the latter. I recall one time after a certain holiday, Christmas, I think, right after Christmas, New Year's it was, and there were a group of about 20 of us in the chapel, men in the chapel meditating, and a few were there who were very highly realized, and they just made that chapel, they transformed it into almost heaven. And meditation was good, and I was just vibrating on about cloud 15. And I came out the chapel door, and three fellows were over in the corner. They had also been meditating. They were over in the corner, and they were having a little friendly argument. And each one had a pet master that he had been thinking about and reading about, and they were debating which master was the greatest one, you know. And they were supporting their arguments and so forth. It was all quite a thing. They did it in good fun, but still, I thought to myself, oh my God, they missed the whole thing. They missed the whole show. You see, it was all right there for them. Here they came out and they started debating which master is the best one, the highest one, and so on. And the whole thing was right there.
That's probably the way the denominations began. Christianity.
That's how they keep on going. How many of them are there now? 800, 900?
I heard one speaker got up and said, as far as she was concerned, they were abominations.
They were abominations. Which abomination do you belong to? Oh, how's our time? Are you getting tired of sitting down? At all? I have a brief meditation and have coffee. Why don't we do that? All right? Because we have something else lined up, I understand, for you afterwards, which will be announced. You want to announce it before? After meditation, before we have our break? But if you have a question or two you want to ask me while we're having coffee, why, you get in the corner while you can ask me. Let's meditate for a moment together. The trouble is, after we get together to know each other, we ought to have more time to meditate. Let's just relax, and as we relax and go into the silence, I'll chant a little bit in Sanskrit and maybe in English too. And if the Sanskrit doesn't strike a bell with you, don't resist it. Simply get the feeling, the implication. The purpose of chanting is twofold. One, it gives us something to concentrate on. And also the effect of the vibration is soothing to the mind, not hypnotic. Although you can use it this way, I don't. But it calms the mind and gives you an opportunity to direct the attention to come to one point in your attention. Let's just relax. Eyes focused at the third eye, point between the eyebrows. Feel the peace in and around the body. Be aware of the subtle vibration, the pulsation of life. Intuitively listen to the mystic sound of Om. Om, the cosmic vibration, the word. And as you contemplate this, you identify with consciousness on this level, the level of vibration. Thus you experience an attunement with life. This is the first step in many cases. The first step from body consciousness, from self-consciousness, to an expanded realization. First we chant it audibly, we'll chant the Om and another chant or two, and then sink into the silence and contemplate the subtle nature of consciousness. Shanti, 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 Hari Om, Shanti. May absolute peace pervade the whole universe. May absolute peace pervade the whole universe. Om. 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 I am Atman Brahman. I am Atman Brahman. This soul reflects the nature of God. This soul reflects the nature of God. Om. Om. Fire cannot burn the soul. Water cannot wet it. Wind does not wither it away. Soul is eternal, immortal, birthless, deathless, changeless, pure, stable, immovable. This is your nature. Oh. Om. Be aware of the light, peace, the joy, the love, the warmth, whatever you can be aware of, the presence, a living, vital thing, impersonal yet personal, this underlying power, here and now, available, not to be supplicated, earned, created, developed, simply accepted in the absolute sense. You can realize the instantaneous availability of your good. Here and now, you move spontaneously, free from the past, free from compulsion, fully aware of what life is all about on all levels. Thus you are a liberated soul, conscious, a conscious instrument for the flow of light and power into this world in a practical sense, as we are always creating, regardless of whether or not we are conscious of it, because of our mental attitude. Then, as we rest in this realization of our relationship with life, we create only that which is consistent with the highest ideals. We become a blessing to mankind. Sometimes in the silence you might want to repeat a portion of scripture, a bit of mystical poetry, anything that will enable you to rise high in consciousness. You might want to recite to yourself, for instance, that it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom of realization, heaven, pure consciousness, yours now, simply for the acceptance. You don't have to measure up, you don't have to overcome, you don't have to earn it, you don't have to do anything but see it, being what it is, what it's always been. And the moment you accept it, the whole thing dawns and everything falls into its proper place. Now, just for a moment in the silence, now be aware of your body, be aware of the floor beneath your feet, be aware of the atmosphere in the room, be aware of the other people around you, accept them for what they are, be aware The time, this point in space, be in peace. All right. Do we have any announcements going on for the break? Refreshments first, and then we get together, I guess, and the announcement.